Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mildly Gothic and I feel ridiculous. If you can't tell, I've made some progress, and this wonderful piece of clothing is the undershirt for my Beetlejuice costume, and I will be showing you how I made it today. This costume has a lot of firsts for me. These ruffles are a first, these little sleeve cuff things, making buttonholes and sewing buttons on, surprisingly not something I've done. Making buttonholes is not something I've done. I have sewn some buttons on in the past, but this is basically part 2 of 3 pieces that I need for this costume. I have all of the pieces for the jacket cut out, and I am very upset that they're not in this video, but that hopefully means that the next one will be even better. My plan is to release the next portion for this video on Halloween. So that includes putting the jacket together and possibly the full makeup, although I may switch the order just to have the nice full reveal of the makeup and the costume itself on Halloween and the final part for how I made the jacket after it. Not entirely sure how that's going to shake out, but I do believe this project is officially the longest running series on my channel. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I think it's kind of fun. It's allowed me to really break this thing down into bite-sized pieces. And the main reason it took so long is that thing back there, that sandworm. Putting together the cardboard head for that took like so much longer than I anticipated. Sewing is something I'm relatively fast at, so I've never been super concerned. But basically, as soon as I'm done putting this video together, I'm gonna be working on the final touches for the jacket. So hopefully all of that goes super smoothly. But I just wanted to show off what this beautiful thing looks like. And so now you get to watch me put it together. If you're interested in this project, please, give a like to this video, subscribe. Fun fact, it's free. Maybe leave a comment down below of what you think and whether or not you think the suit is anywhere near as interesting as the sandworm. I don't think the costume is nearly as cool without this. Now, I will say one thing, this isn't fully modified yet. I am gonna need to have to put a zipper in the shoulder so that I can do the whole sandworm puppet side of things. So did this arm really even need a little ruffle thing? Probably not. I did it anyways. So you know what? It's fine. I wanted to. But if you can't tell, I'm really, really happy with how this thing turned out. And even though it's gonna get covered by a jacket, I still wanted it to be something special in and of itself. And I really think it is. So I hope you stick around to see how I put this thing together. I can't wait to finish this thing and show you all what it looks like. So let's get to the video.
So I have the pants done, but I think I'm actually going to take a little bit of a detour before I get to the jacket. So this is a plain men's white button-up shirt. It's in a size large. The only thing I really cared about was making sure this fit around my neck and comfortably. So, because one of the other things that I need is not only a vest, but he has the very classically ruffled shirt underneath, which always makes me think of Ron Weasley and, the Yule Ball outfit. So I have a men's shirt. Clearly this doesn't have ruffles. So what are we gonna do? Well, I'm basically gonna make what I know is called a dickie. And I know it's a weird name, but basically it's a fake collar. So I'm essentially just gonna be using this piece of it. What does that get me? Well, what that gets me is basically this entire back panel of fabric for free. So what my plan is I'm going to basically cut this into a short sleeve shirt. I'm considering keeping the sleeves because I know with jackets, if this is essentially my shirt, I would be wearing like a tank top undershirt underneath, which just means, I wouldn't have any sleeves. And if I'm wearing a jacket on top, I'd like to have some sleeve. So I'm gonna cut this into this little short sleeve moment. And then basically use all the fabric from the lower half and all of the fabric for the back, because look, there's existing hems, and basically try to layer and create my ruffles. What this means is I then get the buttons for free. I get the ruffles and I save, this shirt cost me like 30 bucks. But what I'm gonna do is I think stitch the vest to be a part of this, so that I can basically just stitch the vest onto the front of this. So the shirt and the vest are actually just gonna be one piece, because I feel like that might just make my life easier getting into this costume and not having as many layers to worry about. So I'm gonna try to preserve the center buttons. I'm gonna put this on and see kind of where this falls and where this fits and how much fabric I can take off. But I think I have a very clear plan in my head of how this is going to work. Is it actually going to work that way? Who knows? But yeah, we are going to turn this into an old style ruffled tuxedo-esque sort of shirt somehow. So we'll figure it out. And just a side note, one of the many reasons I haven't gotten to the jacket or the shirt yet is because once I take this armor plate off the dress form, I don't know where to put it. And it's so beautiful and I really don't want to ruin its structure, but unfortunately it's got to go. So I'm not throwing it out. I just have to find somewhere for it to live. So it might just live on the floor for a little while, unfortunately. But this is part of why I haven't made any progress, is because I don't want to take this off. So I'm going to start by not actually cutting off the sleeves, because he does have cuffs, and in a lot of them he's got the frilly cuffs. So I'm not going to worry too much about that, but I am going to probably chop it about here and also kind of cut it just under the shoulder back seam, because I was originally thinking layers of ruffles, so like scalloped kind of edges in, but in a lot of ones it's looking like basically flat pieces that have been scrunched to kind of create that ruffled look. So regardless, I gotta get myself enough fabric first, but I think for me, I'm going to cut it, if it ever wraps around the dress form, there we go. I think I'm gonna give it probably after this button. I'm gonna cut it there, and that should give me more than enough material if I basically cut this in a swoop up to the underarm and then cut this straight across the back from there. Because again, I've still got the vest that's gonna go on top of this, so I might just keep the sleeves and make this whole shirt and vest still one thing, just, you know, with sleeves instead of without. So that is what we're going to work on. The neck is a little big, but again, I don't really think that's a problem. I don't mind it. I think it's probably gonna work a little bit better to be the big boxy kind of masculine illusion. I still can't decide how gender bent I want to go with it. Do I want to make it a lot more feminine or not? I'm gonna start with the shirt and go from there, because the thing is, I think I can get the shirt and vest done pretty quickly, and if I do, then I'll be motivated because I'll have actually made some progress. So I'm gonna take some scissors to this thing. So I started by taking an arbitrary measurement of where the collar sat on me to about a little bit longer than I knew I wanted the ruffles to sit, which I then just took to the nearest button as far as what took it longer. I made sure to give myself a little bit of extra room. And then I went from there and made an approximate line just up to the armpit, cut it right underneath the sleeve in a straight line all the way across the back, and then tried to mimic the same curve down on the front. Very straightforward. So with all the extra fabric I have, one would think that I can do basically my pieces this way, but I'm a little concerned about that because they do kind of have to get ruched and bunched, and so I don't want them to end up too much shorter. So I think I'm going to cut them this way, because then I get very, very long strips, and I only need 4. Basically 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's all I'll need. I think that's all that's going to be visible. So this should be more than enough fabric to do that. So I am going to figure out the best way to cut and organize these into rectangles, and I'll let you know what I come up with. So after review of what I can find online, I'm definitely going to go with the rectangles that get stitched up the middle. So this is the squared off center back piece. I cut off the extra from the top and bottom and cut off the sides. So I have squared this up, meaning I have mostly basically straight edges. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 spaces. And if I'm going to do 4 pieces, then that means 14 divided by 4 should be 3.5. 3.5, 3.5. Yeah, that looks about right. And that should give me plenty of wiggle room to, because I guess I could fold them completely in half and just try to cover the ends up when I stitch it on, which may be one option. Or basically roll the ends under and do mini rolled seams on all of them, which sounds a little bit like a nightmare, and I don't know that I want to do that. So I'm going to fold these over again to try to make it as small a distance as possible that I have to traverse with my scissors. Is that potentially going to be a bad decision? Who knows? But I'm going to cut these into strips and then sit here and contemplate how I want to hem them together. because I think 3.5 will be wide enough, because if each one of these squares is 1 inch and that takes me to 3.5, even if I use a 1/2 inch on either side to deal with the rolled hem, or let's say I do a full inch on either side to deal with the rolled hem, I still think that's going to be wide enough to do what I want. I'm going to try to take, obviously, less is more. That'll get me, you know, a wider ruffle, and it'll look more fantastical as it's all like crisscrossed. Who knows if that was even in frame, as it looks all crisscrossed and that such. But I'm going to start by cutting this into my 3.5 inch wide sections. I just got reminded of the Monty Python string sketch. Unfortunately, it was all cut into 3.5 inch lengths, but we are now doing 3.5 inch widths, and I'm going to cut these pieces up and probably iron for a long time to do the rolled hem, because that's going to be the easiest way to do it, and it's also going to suck, but ironing is super important, so I'm going to get to cutting. Well, so I have all of these pressed and rolled and ready to be hemmed, but if you'll notice, we had a little bit of an incident. This is what an iron burn looks like, kids. The temperature got kicked up a little bit too high, and I was not paying attention to how long I held it on the fabric. Here's the great thing. I don't actually need this to be white. I was actually planning on dyeing it with coffee after I get the shirt done, because Beetlejuice is so grungy and dirty and gross. So luckily it works perfectly fine for the intentions that I need it. But this is your PSA. Be careful when you're ironing. Watch your temperature. Watch how long you're pressing the iron down. Be very careful. Irons can be very dangerous, even when you're attempting to use them correctly. So what I'm going to do now is top stitch all of these seams down, and then I'm going to run a basting stitch along the center of these and pull them so that I can get that funky little ruffled effect, and then pin that onto the shirt and sew them down. Hopefully they are long enough. Fingers crossed. So I have just 2 pieces pinned on right now. The basting stitch is still in there and I'm messing around with it. And honestly, I can't believe how good this looks already. So I'm going to put the second strip as close to there as I can. And so they did end up getting a little flat at the bottom just so I could scooch the ruffle up. But I think that's okay, because I think I ended up making it longer than I needed so that I could have the vest sit higher and have fabric to attach it to. So in the end, I think this will be okay. I realize I'm like blocking my light entirely. In the end, I think this will be okay. And this next one is going to get scooched, I think, a little bit higher so that if there's any open collar section, you don't see it as much from there. How do I sew these down is the new question. I have no idea. But we're gonna figure it out, I guess. I think, okay, so I do have one thought. I have all my pins running vertically right now. I think I'm actually gonna put a bunch of them horizontally to help me make these gaps between the pleats a little bit more even. And then I think I can basically just sew it straight down the middle. So I think I'm gonna spend some time and adjust these 2 pins, these 2, and get these honestly sewn on before I go to the outside, just for a little saving of sanity. So I have these 2 fully sewn on. As you can see, there's no more pins, and honestly, I'm obsessed. So it did end up getting shortened a lot, but I put it on and I think it'll be okay. It just depends on where the vest sits. I just need something. It doesn't have to be perfect, and since I'm making it, I can tailor make the vest to not show anything down here and just show what's up here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the next one in place, and I'm not sure how close to do it, because I do want them to be, you know, close enough that when these are frilled up, they're not too far apart. But I'm gonna go ahead and lay that second strip down, so then I'll have the shirt. So I have all 4 pieces sewn on. Apologize if you hear me sniffling. I am weirdly congested right now. Might have to do with the fact that I'm sitting on the floor, but it's fine. So what I'm going to do now that I have these done, and you can kind of see I've outlined the swoop-ish for how I want the vest to kind of come. I've seen the vest done as both like a traditional vest and also as a scoop neck. So I'm probably going to look at a few more photo references before I really make a decision. The current decision I'm having is which fabric to use, because I don't know if I have enough for the jacket. And because I haven't started the jacket, I want to preserve as much material as possible for the jacket. So I'm a little anxious to make the vest and be unsure. However, I do know I'm planning to do the back of the vest in black satin, the same black satin that I did for the lining of the Philippe Georgiou jacket, just because I have so much of it, and also vests can be two-toned and often the back is a little bit different. So that's my plan. It just needs to be a similar red in the front, and so if I do that, it means I won't use as much of my normal fabric, or I could use the old fabric that I still kind of have a vendetta against and hate myself a little bit more. So to be determined, but I have to determine if it is a V-neck or a scoop situation. But either way, I have the shirt done and I'm going to pattern the vest. I'm probably going to do it directly on here and just use parchment paper and kind of figure out where I want it to sit, because I'm going to be sewing it directly to this white fabric. I'm using this not just as an undershirt, but kind of as an under layer. So wherever the vest buttons, I'm going to make sure I don't sew them across this closure, because I basically want it to button up with the vest buttons, and then the shirt buttons is one piece. So the vest and the shirt will all kind of be attached together and just one layer instead of multiple. So gotta figure out the pattern, gotta figure out the material, but we are making progress. So I have my pattern pieces cut out, and I only need one for each part of the vest because of how I'm gonna put this thing together. Basically the bottom hem I'm just going to do as a rolled hem, and the rest of this I'm gonna fold it under and basically directly top stitch it down onto the shirt. So I only need one layer of things. I have my back here because I am using spare fabric that I had to get kind of funky with the placement of it, just showing you the inside. Nice shiny part of the satin is in there. I had to get kind of funky with it. I did want to originally put this along a fold line. However, it would have eaten up too much of the fabric, and so I decided to take advantage of a scrapier section and just kind of put it there. So I do have to hem this up the back. That'll be fine. So I have those pinned together, and once that's done, I will get the shoulders done, and then I'm going to snip and iron this entire section and basically gently try to place it down and pin it in place so I can sew it onto the shirt. But I'm going to sew this up first, and then sew those two parts of the vest onto this, and then show you how I do all of the ironing stuff after that. So we have the vest. Obviously this is not done yet. It needs to be now sewn down to the shirt. But I have ironed all of my seams and got it all nice and pressed flat. So what I'm going to do is figure out where this sits on the mannequin, and it actually looks like it fits quite well, which I'm really happy about. And I'm going to do the hem and roll just a little bit under and get that all pinned in place. And basically what you're going to see is going to look like just the top stitching that would finish the outside edge, except it's actually going to be the stitching attaching this to the shirt. So I think it looks adorable right now. It looks so silly. I love it so much. I'm going to keep it buttoned for right now just so I can figure this out, but I do think I'm going to, I have to figure out the button situation and how I want that to work. But we are making progress. I think the black satin back looks nice. It'll tie it in a little bit. I am planning on lining the jacket with the black satin, so I should have plenty of that. It'll tie it in. I think it looks great. Obviously, it's not sitting quite even on the shoulders right now, so I'll just have to finagle that around a little bit and get that sorted. But yeah, we are one step away. I say one step and several hours of sewing away from having the vest for Beetlejuice. So the largest pieces of white fabric that I had left were from the front panels of the shirt, and so I did my best to kind of square it up. I cut off the extra seams, I cut off kind of the extra overhang, and used the length of the wrist cuff itself to determine how long I was going to need to make this frill, and was just trying to get as much fabric as possible out of this cuff, because again, I need it to be at least twice as long as the cuff in order to get a decent ruffle out of it. And luckily I was able to do just that. So I've started the jacket, but I haven't really filmed a lot of it at this point because the pattern drafting is the same process as the pants, and I just cut out all the pattern pieces. I'll talk about these in a minute. These are going to be the floofy bit at the end of the wrist cuffs. I think I have some footage of me cutting this out and how I'm going to use those. So I have all of my outside fabric pieces cut, and I have, pardon the noise, all of these bits laid out for the lining. I do actually have one more. This piece gets cut in red. That's the inner lapel. These two pieces and then the repeat of the back panel get cut out of black satin, the same material you saw me use on the vest. And then I will have all of the pieces for the jacket cut out, and we will begin putting the whole thing together. So before I get a little too carried away, because I kind of already have, when I finished hemming the edge of the straight section of the shirt, I went ahead and sewed it to the already kind of finished edge. If you'll notice, there's some extra fabric here, and that's because this hem is actually from basically the side seam of the shirt. I'm just using it as a finished edge to make my life a little bit easier. And they are sewn together here, folded over, and stitched together slightly sloppily, but you know. So what I have left to do is I have to just do a small rolled hem on these cotton edges because they will be exposed. I am preserving the button in the sleeves, which means it is not going to, these two ends are not going to get sewn to each other. They are going to maintain separate ends that just get really, really close to each other. I have one of the sleeves already on the mannequin, and so you can see kind of right here what that join is going to look like and what those little rolled hems look like. And just like I did the ruffles on the center of the shirt, I have pinned them in place and gathered them together, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch it on. If you'll notice, my basting stitch is done on this little folded bit of fabric. I didn't go as far to do a rolled edge because I thought that would be a little bit too thick to actually be able to bunch up properly, but I did want to have a very nice finished edge on the outside here. Not that you're going to see it because it is going to be inside the sleeve, but I just wanted to try to make the outside of the sleeve just a little bit nicer if possible, even though some of my stitching is a little ugly. But that's okay, because hopefully you're not close enough to see that. The sandworm is probably going to bite you if you are. So that is what we have here. I'll probably put a few more pins in. Just a bit of advice, if you were doing gathers and you want them to be very even, you literally should go as far as pinning every single one. It's really hard with these bobble-ended pins. If you had just straight pins, that would work really well. But, you know, if you don't need them to be super, super precise, this is perfectly fine. You just want to pin them vertically like this because it just kind of helps hold the spacing and the flow of the fabric a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and gather this, get it pinned on. Actually, I lied. I'm going to hem these, then gather this, get it pinned on, and then sew the sleeves on and show you what it looks like. So next up is something I've never done before, and that is buttonholes. I know there is a thing you can get called a buttonhole foot. I don't have one, so I'm going to try to do it with just my normal sewing machine. And so I read up on how to do it. So I've marked where the center of my buttonhole should be in very faint. It's red pen. I can't find my tailor's chalk, but it's red pen and it'll get cut open anyway, so it should be fine. They don't look the most even, but I did measure them, so they should be all the same distance. And I'm going to sew a straight stitch 1 millimeter away from this line all around, and then I'm going to do the zigzag stitch all the way around to make the outside, and then I will cut open the buttonhole. So fingers crossed this works, I guess. And those are kind of to define my length of buttonhole. I know not all my pins are straight, but this is what we've got set up right now, and I'm a little scared. We're going to see how this goes. Mid-button update. I did end up redrawing over it in purple pen because while I could see it in this lighting, as soon as I put it under my sewing machine, I could not see the lines whatsoever. So now that I have my straight stitches around done, I am going to do zigzag stitches around those. So I'm going to zigzag up around, and I saw something that said you should go over it twice, so if my camera wants to focus. But I'm going to go around these in a zigzag. I did all of these first because I want to use a test scrap of fabric to figure out the right width for my zigzag. Because I don't use my zigzag stitch super, super often. So I want to figure out the right width for my zigzag so I can just do this properly. But with that, oh, something else I wanted to mention, there is interfacing on the back of this section to add more support for the buttonholes, because obviously this is not a finished edge. But there is now interfacing here to kind of help add some support and stability, and that is on both this section with the buttonholes, and I did it on the side that's going to have the buttons themselves. I'm doing the buttonholes first because for some reason in my head I thought it would be easier to line up buttons to existing buttonholes than buttonholes to existing buttons. Is that a terrible idea? We'll find out eventually, but I'm doing this right now. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out the right width for my zigzag stitch and show you what the buttonholes look like.
not gonna lie, I'm pretty proud of myself. So I've opened up one, I have the other two right here, and the way I did it is I used a box cutter, and I also made sure that my button can in fact fit through my little buttonhole, so I shouldn't have any problem there. This one got away from me a little bit. You can see that these two stack very nicely, and this side of this one didn't stack the best. It's actually kind of hard to tell where the thread is going, so definitely might consider investing in a buttonhole maker or foot in the future, but for now you just kind of do a few passes like this, being very careful to not get too close to the edge of your buttonhole, and you end up with, if the fabric cooperates, which it does not want to, where would fabric ever cooperate with me when I am attempting to demonstrate something? Just do it a few times, and you get yourself a buttonhole. I'm just a little cautious about putting too much force in because I'm afraid of it potentially kicking back and then cutting, like, you know, further than what I need it to. But there we have it, another functional buttonhole. And so I'm gonna go ahead and open up this last one and then overlay my two sides on top of each other and figure out where the center of that is to figure out where I need to put my buttons, and then I will have the vest done. I'm very, very excited. These were actually easier to do than I thought they were going to be, which is a very, very pleasant surprise. So let's hope putting these on is just as simple. So that's where we are. I have all of my beautiful buttons. We've got the pants on too, so you can see where those sit. I'm wearing a black shirt underneath tucked in. For the actual costume, I'm probably gonna wear a white shirt tucked in so that it looks like it's a continuation of this shirt up here. And up next is the jacket. So that is all I have left to do. And technically a bow tie. I keep forgetting about the bow tie, but I'm not super worried about the bow tie. Worst comes to worst, I'm just gonna go buy one. But jacket time is what's next, and I sincerely hope you stick around to see this project through to the end. This has been one of the craziest tests of what I can do, and if I can figure out how to do it, you can too. Take that crazy idea, make it something real, because you never know how much fun you're gonna have doing it. So thank you so much for watching if you got to this point in the video. It means so, so much to me, and I hope to see you in the next one.